Welcome everyone to week 2 of the Alchemy of You. So we've made it through the fire of you, right? Week 1, as you know, is all about you. And it's very interesting to go through this process because inherently we would assume all of our lives are focused around ourselves. Yet, how often do you give yourself the opportunity to really look at yourself in this more expanded way? So hopefully you were able to see some sides of yourself, some sides of being human, learn something new from the videos or through discussions about what identity is, about what it means to be us, the hero awakening in our own stories, and the ability to see beyond our own limited notions of who we are. In this process, we've seen hopefully some challenges in who we are, whether it's being issues around not feeling worthy or issues of not feeling capable or strong enough to really hold the vision that you have of who you are in the world or the vision of who you want to be in the world. And maybe there are some models you've discovered that help you through that process. It would be great to, hopefully you've explored and shared with others tools that you have, resources that you use. As a therapist, maybe you use them with your clients. As a practitioner, maybe you use them in your private practice or in your personal practice, like a certain meditation or visualizations or sound healing, or so many different ways that we can use that can help us tune into who we really are. So ultimately the goal is to understand what it is we're striving to achieve, kind of like our higher self in this. That's why we did the future self work, right? And to really tune into who we're becoming, not who others expect us to be, but who we are dreaming ourselves into becoming every day, every moment that we awaken. So Fire 2 is taking that very kind of centered notion of self, whether it's on a conscious self, a higher self, or on a deep primal self. It's all a very interior experience until we take it out into the world, right? Fire 2 is us moving it out into the world. And in many ways, the alchemy of calcinatio, of burning away what is not true about us, is the beginning of Fire 2, because the moment that we dare to bring our vision, our art, our music, our creativity out into the world is a moment we invite the world to burn away what isn't resonating. I'm not sure, but I'm certain of my own self that there were dreams and visions I had for myself of what I'd bring into the world that once I brought them out didn't exactly turn out the way that I thought they would. There is always in the creative endeavor this need to accommodate the world you're in, and that's a pretty important part of it. That's part of the improvising of this. We're inspired into action. We take the leap as the heroes of our own stories, the heroines of our own stories. We put out our personal power in the world, but really what's being tested is our identity with the outer world. Fire 1 is very much about consciousness of who you are. If you listen to Tom Campbell's video, a lot of what we've gone through is just becoming aware of who we are as individuals. Very important thing. Certainly built this entire self-help world we're in, and much of even the metaphysical movement into the New Age movement is very much about identifying ourselves out of the labyrinths of the technological traps of the father, right? Of the past, of what we came out of. But the maturing of this starts to burn away and say, when you bring that fiery intention out into the world, and the world's like, how do you express your shamanic beliefs and experiences more authentically? So, and it may be that, but the world will question that. The world will ask you to bring your true self forward. Like Icarus escaping the labyrinth of his father's, technological misguided ways and too cleverness, his hubris. He escapes finally by the help of his father, ironically enough, because the air realm, the mental realm of thinking his way out of a problem. and relating in a way that can get you out of it into a higher level. But as you know, with Icarus, he gets to this certain plateau at the top of the air fire realm, at the top of the model, and that's when it's sort of like the ivory tower. That's when we realize this isn't sustainable. It's beautiful. It's big vision. It's great to go on meditation retreats and feel that inspired high. It's great to go on an ayahuasca journey. It's great to do a sweat lodge and come out feeling great. But the work beyond that, the real spiritual work, is the ironically is this burning away of what is hyperinflated, what is desirous and egotistical and fantasy based about our big visions for ourselves. Fire 1 says, bring it all. It's good. It is. It really is good. Fire 2 says, yes, but I don't know. As an artist, maybe you've done some beautiful art and you brought it out to the world and it didn't resonate. That doesn't mean that your art is wrong. No, it doesn't mean it may be in the wrong environment. Maybe. These are all things that Fire 2 asks us to play with. And it is a house of play. It's an arena of play, creativity, expression. When we bring ourselves, when we dare to take that big heroic journey, as we improvise and go out into the world, we're being asked to play. We're being asked to be Leo, the lion, the golden child, and just jump on stage and improv, right? So this whole week is about that. What is it that you're hoping to bring out into the world, that you're expressing in the world? What are some of the things that you're wanting to see in the world? And one of the mistakes I certainly have made in looking at a lot of these sort of approaches is that I'm a big picture person, but there is also the micro, right? There's the right here and now. And even in my personal life, even in your personal life, your home life, what are you inspired to bring into your home life that makes a difference, that makes change? We're here to make a difference. What is this fire burning away in the way that you interact in your private life, in your alone time, that is no longer working for you, no longer serving you? Bring that fire in, call that fire out from the heart, and really illuminate the world around you, and allow yourself the opportunity to be uncomfortable enough to bring out what's real, so that the true fire, the true vision coming forth can burn away the impurities of what's not going to work to bring this vision into the world, whether it's to be a good parent, a good spouse, a good partner, a good friend, a good neighbor, or a good healer. Whatever that is, Fire 2 says, bring it out. Now in astrology, we have Fire 1 is the first house, and they call it the cardinal house. Now, each of the 4 elements, fire, water, earth, and air, have a beginning, middle, and end. Cardinal, fixed, and mutable phases. Cardinal is the vector, it's an arrow. For fire, it shoots straight up. Water goes down. Fire is the vector going up, and it's saying, let's take ourselves out of this common moment and bring ourselves to this elated self of higher consciousness where we rise up to the top of the fire realm there. But as you see, when we go into Fire 2, that starts to arc down. And a lot of that, as Icarus knows well, is the light of the world around us, the sun burning away the wax wings. What inflated us got us out of our old traps and our old holes and these old places that we were stuck in before, that inspired us to get out of it, can easily turn into a spiral out into this egotistical, hyperinflated state of, wow, I am. As Carl Jung said, the remedy to that is always keep your eye on the center, so the centrifugal pull will keep you in the orbit and not have you spiraling out. So keeping your eye on that will spin you around into the world, will get you out of your house in a way that is no longer just about this internal experience, right? But moves out into the world, and you bring your art, your vision, your music, your poetry to others, and then you're opening yourself to feedback. So there is this personal power being presented to the world. Fire 1, consciousness of yourself. Fire 2 is consciousness of your world and yourself in the world, most importantly. How are you resonating with the world? How does the world resonate with you? It's about your identity with the outer world, right? And it's about taking your vision out into the world. And I think more real, it's your vision taking you out into the world, right? So it's about what are you yearning to create in the world, to express in the world, to live into in the world. Fire 2 is all about that. The idea of what the world is asking from you, what it's asking you to create, what it needs from you, what it's asking you to express, what it's asking you to live into. Maybe you're entering into a new job, or maybe you want to create a new career, and it's asking you to do things differently than you've done before. It's all going to bring you into this sort of innovator's dilemma of being comfortable with being uncomfortable, being comfortable with going out into the unknown, into the mystery of life. And that's what I find so fascinating about this. We're all being called out into the mystery. The inner mystery is an endless mystery, but the creative endeavor says, bring this out into the world, be something in the world, act in the world, act on your inspirations, right? So in this process, we're going to find both opportunities for expression and expansion, fire, but we're also going to find constraints, right? There are going to be things that constrain us. And if you, for instance, artists doing charcoal drawings, the constraint is that charcoal is charcoal, it's black, right, on white paper. But they can take those constraints and use them to create, to expand and create even within those constraints, as long as they understand the constraints of their medium. If I'm a preacher and I'm preaching in a church, I'm going to have some constraints on my language use, my vernacular, my lexicon. So we have to be able to accommodate the world, in other words. There is this adaptation is accommodation and assimilation, right? Being able to accommodate the needs of the world, but also to be able to assimilate into what the world needs, what the world has, and what the world has to offer in terms of resources to create and explore and command that awareness, that audience for bringing forth the beauty that wants to shine forth through you, right? So there's a lot of opportunities in that. And as Soul Lab represents, we're all in our own way experimenting here. We're our own little soul labs, and we're researching. And Fire 2 is all about research. Fire 1 is a hypothesis, great idea, great vision. Fire 2 is, well, what does the world need? What does the world have there? What are some generative models that you can refer to? For myself in graduate school, within the first year, second year, I started to recognize that I was learning a whole hell of a lot, but I was not going to be a clinician. I knew it. I did my practicum at Harvard's Mind-Body Institute, and that's where I found a model. And I didn't know what it was about clinical psychology that wasn't resonating with me, but I did know that it wasn't my world. I loved working in the psychiatric hospitals. I loved working in counseling. However, it did not feel like what I knew I was, even though I didn't know what that was becoming. I'm living into a mystery on some level, intuitive, fiery level. I know, but consciously I don't really know. But I see it in the models out there in the world as these sort of approximations, right? And so at the Mind-Body Institute, a brilliant program at the Beth Israel campus hospital, and they take folks that are going through the medical system, whether they're suffering chronic diseases like irritable bowel syndrome, cancer, chronic fatigue, and all these sorts of things, many different medical conditions. Instead of, well, they've been bringing them through their medical process and they're not helping them in the way that they would like to. So they send them to the Mind-Body Institute, and we teach them for 2 hours for 8 weeks. In each of the 2 hours, we're teaching them something. We're giving them some insights into the owner manual of being human, having a body, having an emotional body, having a mental body and a spiritual body, all wrapped into one wonderful, earth suit. And so 1 week we would teach them about cognitive distortion, L realm stuff, right? About how our thinking can get screwy and about how we can correct that. Another week would be about how we can deal with our emotions by bringing in joyful emotions, the water realm, right? Another week we're doing Qigong and Tai Chi and yoga. That's earth realm stuff. And yet another week we're doing energetic stuff, fire realm type stuff, right? And we're meeting with a wise old man, or it should be wise old woman as well, that gives us insights like our future self exercise. So in this program, as kind of simple as I thought it was as I was going through it, the outcome after 8 weeks was always tremendous. There's something very powerful about empowering other people with knowledge about themselves. As my guides, my council of elders told me years and years ago, they said, your one goal here is to help people see themselves for themselves. If you can help them see themselves, what they see and what they do is their gift back to the world. Your job is simply this. So we're helping see for ourselves in this process. We're helping each other, we're helping ourselves to see who we are and what we're creating in the world, week 2. In this process, we're researching what your world needs, what your world wants, and what your world will accept. And we're also kind of dealing with ego identity, who we know ourselves to be, fire 1, and role confusion, fire 2, about, when you look at yourself in your world, in your family, in your personal and private and professional lives, is who you're presenting as and who it's resonating at, or the roles you play in your life, are they truly fitting who you're becoming or who you've been or who you are now? And where are you in that process? The fire is going to burn away and burn away the impurity so that something, a more spiritual vision can come through there. It's about expression, creativity. It's about course correction as needed to create beautiful art. And it's about taking in models, right? So some of the, if I look at it, we look at it from a psychotherapeutic perspective, we can see the creative realm. What are some of the models? Fire 1, we know it's like self-psychology, right? Fire 2, being about creativity, we can look to art therapists, drama therapy, there's expressive therapy, there's psychodrama. There's a host of Gestalt-like processes that really kind of allow us to enter onto the stage of everyday life and to play off and see how the world resonates with us, and to enter into that dynamic I-thou field so that that resonant field can grow us up, can recalibrate us, can show us a better way through. So for this, for Fire 2, I looked at the different mythologies out there. Fire 1, we could see really clear ones: Zeus, Prometheus, Apollo. I mean, it goes on and on. There's a lot of very active and large and in charge gods out there. It was interesting. That's a vector, right? The arrow, the point, right? The middle realm, I found mostly goddesses, which is kind of fun. I didn't think of this, or I didn't know this before. I'm always learning. In mythology, right, we have the Muses, we have Minerva, we have Athena, we have amazing women, female goddesses rather, that guide the way. Now the Muses are conducted by Apollo to make everything orchestrated well, but they're very interesting. The Muses, I'll list them: Calliope, or as we say in New Orleans, Calliope. Calliope is the muse of poetry. Clio, she's the muse of history, education, and knowledge. We have Erato. She expresses our desires in juicy verbs and ripe adjectives and really inventive details, right? Getting into that erotic zone is getting into that exaltation of being human, being part of this world in a very erotic way. Euterpe is about creating new music. Melpomene, I love. She's a muse of tragedies and elegies. She's the one who creates those powerful films, through us, the powerful music through us, the powerful poetry that brings healing through expressing loss and tragedy in our lives. And I just think it's, for us that are in this therapeutic world, Melpomene is really quite the wonderful being. And only one of them, in fact. Polymnia. the muse of sacred song and lyrics. Very powerful. We see it in every shamanic tradition, every healing tradition. Sacred song sits at the center of the metaphysical. It brings us back into resonant connection with Source. It brings us back in touch with the angels, right? There's Terpsichore. She's a muse of dance and music. There's Talia, the comedian, the muse of comedy. If you can't laugh at your life, you're not doing it well. In fact, Fire 2 says, play more. You know, Harvard had this wonderful bit of research coming out for quite a while when I was in grad school around the power of play, and how all that we've learned came from those times when we were young and we were playing, right? So Talia is really bringing out this notion of looking at our world from a funny slant, right? As Buddha said, if you knew the truth about reality, you'd throw your head up at the sky and laugh, right? And then there's finally Urania. Urania is seeking wisdom in the stars. And I have always had a relationship with astrology, that I had had great astrological readings, but as I looked at the whole system, it threw my ADD into a tailspin. Until, I don't know, 6 years ago or so, I realized that this model that I had developed over 18 years at that point or so, looked a lot like an astrological wheel. So I started plugging it in and found that it all fits. Why? Because alchemy is alchemy. That's the beauty of this. This model is based around the elements that bring us into a common place. We all fit together around this wheel. I had this dream that I was circumambulating around this beautiful crystalline reality. It was like a building as big as like a mountain. And as I was circumambulating, kind of pulsing in and out around it, I would see all of these different theorists and developmentalists and gurus and the rest, and they were all looking through very different prisms, very different little windows in, right? And as I went to look into those windows, I could see entire worlds, beautiful, beautiful worlds, coherent, cogent, clear holons. They were real. They were perfectly what they were. And as I came out of it and I went to another window, I looked into that facet. And in this window, I saw a completely cogent, coherent, beautifully holistic holon of a world. But it was very different than the one over here. Very different. Same crystal reality, different vision in, and different worldview, right? It's sort of like the seven blind men touching different parts of the element. One thought it's a rope because it's a tail. The other thought it's a wall because it's touching the belly. And the other thought it was a tree trunk because it's touching the trunk. Each one of them looking and seeing different things. And if we only look through that one facet, we're like these blind men touching the elephant. What really struck me about this vision in this dream that changed everything for me, changed my entire trajectory in my study and my practice and my work, was that as I came back and saw it from a bigger picture, I could see all of us looking in through these very unique facets of reality. And they were all right. They were all beautiful. They were all necessary, but not sufficient. None of them. Necessary, but not sufficient. So we talk about that in science and research. Yes, that's a necessary insight, but it doesn't tell the whole picture. Each one of us brings a pixel point of reality. We are the nexus of an entire universe shining through, and our perspective is necessary. You are necessary. Your view is necessary. And you're invited around this wheel, around the fire, to hold your vision, to shine your vision forth, while also receiving back the reflection of others' visions, to be bathed and transformed. Because as all the pixel points come together, they reveal a new vision coming forth. And this is, as Tom Campbell says, and this incredible, he says it quite a bit, but I'm going to play that for you guys in this course, that it really is a time of coming together, that our little silos of specializations need to let go into something bigger. We need to trust each other, to open ourselves, and have this dialectic of idea synthesis, my idea, and antithesis, your idea. is it my idea right or your idea is right? No, or is this window pane or this prism the right one, or is this one? No, they're all right. But more importantly, what comes into focus when we see them all come together? When we see all the people in Fire One come together and all the different views from all the different traditions and practices and platforms and systems, when we all come together and reveal something about what we all share in common, but from a unique perspective, bubbles upon bubbles create new visions of a new world. That's what we're up to here. Fire 2 is, how do you express and create in a world? Everyone has their own way. Learning about creativity from a dancer is incredible. There's a lot to learn about yourself through that process. Learning about yourself through a poet, a musician. The more we learn from other creatives and their creative process, the more we'll learn about ourselves. So the World Cafe is about holding a space for your big vision for yourself, but the discussion groups for each of these weeks is really important because this holds a space to really discuss and talk with your peers about creativity and to read through and to listen to their ideas around this in the question and answers on Saturdays. So that's where we are with that. Goddesses are, we said Minerva, the wisdom and god of wisdom and arts and strategy. She's very tied in the Greek mythology with Athena. She's the patron goddess of Athens. She's about wisdom. She's about courage and inspiration. She's about creating society, strategy, skills, and art. And she leaped out of the head of Zeus. You know, I see Zeus as being very much that fiery air realm. And her coming out of that, the feminine expressive part, is really kind of out of the minds comes something much deeper, something much more inner feminine, creative coming out. Now, one other I found really interesting from the Nordic mythology that I thought was very fitting is Kvasir, I think. Is that how you say the name? Kvasir is a traveling teacher, like a mead of poetry, like the bards of old, right? And they went around not only teaching, but they also learned and shared, and they became like pollinators of stories and poetry around the world. So that's another great muse to focus on. And I would inspire you to find your models, right? There's so many models out there that we can look at to inspire us. Who inspires you? Who creates in the world in a way that you would love to emulate, for instance, right? In terms of the water part of this, fire is all this sort of conceptual stuff. The water part of it, I'm going to add a video about vision boarding. And we have and some informationals around vision boarding. Now, traditionally, vision boards kind of you have your own organic process and you move through it. What I would love to experiment with you guys in this process is to break your vision board up into the spiral with the 12 arenas. And in each of these arenas, Fire 1, put your ideal self in there, future self. Put your shadow self in there as well. And Fire 2, bring in all the things you want to create in the world, all the creative things that inspire you, all the creative models, put them all in Fire 2 and on and on and on. Fire 3 is going to get us into the final phase, the mutable phase of fire, where our vision for who we are and our expression of who we are in the world leads to this higher state of wisdom, spiritual wisdom. It's like higher education. It's about what happens, the phoenix rising out of the fire of our ego self evolving through being willing to dare to create in the world, bringing that vision forward. The ego plays a beautiful role, and it's being asked to sacrifice itself for something greater. And Fire 3 is going to get into that, the rituals and the ceremony that we use to keep evolving ourselves. Fire 2, however, is still about creativity and playfulness. So in this process, as we get into our discussions and we have our talks, whether it's online or whether through Skype or Zoom or phone calls, and in the discussion groups on the learning platform, bring that inspire each other and be inspired by others. We're also going to take the Myers-Briggs, a version of it. And if you go to 16 personalities, I think it's personalities We'll put a link up. That's going to give you a real strong sense of the archetypal side of us, expressed from this side of archetypes. And it's also going to give a sort of operationalized view of what it is that this model is made out of. The four elements: fire, water, earth, and air. Fire is the intuitive, the N. Water is the F for feeling, emotional. The earth realm is the S types, the sensate types. And the air realm is the thinking types, the T types. So they all come together, and we're going to get deeper into that. This is just going to give us a profile into you, just like we did with the Strengths Finders 2.0. We're going to constantly keep learning about ourselves and sharing about ourselves in the process. So with these two, we are grounding this creative endeavor and this desire, this effort, this willingness to show up as our authentic selves. It's about developing authentic presence and relationships. And the fire will help us do that. All we have to be doing is being willing to show up, right? That's a very important part of it. So some things I thought that might inspire. There's a video about Innovators DNA. You'll look in the list and there it is. Great discussion given. I think it was in Paris for a gathering of economists, I think. But anyway, it's pretty long, but it's well worth watching. What I loved about it was nearing the end, 20 minutes in or so, he goes and talks to all these great innovators, all the great industries around the world, and he asks them, what are the key features of an innovator? What is in an innovator's DNA? And here's some of the insights. Ask simple questions. I'm learning this. Simple questions. I'm going out because I'm having to create and learn in this fire too. Because I have this fiery vision of bringing SoLab out to the world, and to create it, I have to work with the world as it is, constraints and all, the challenges and all, dealing with technology, dealing with marketing and business and programming, all these different things. I have to deal because it's part of the art of it. So I'm going out to all these folks and I'm asking a lot of questions, and I'm learning now to ask simple questions. They're all saying, be specific. What is a point you want to make here? What do you need from me? Very busy person. I have a lot of commitments to the world. Come with simple questions. And that's what the first thing all of the innovators say. I ask simple questions, and I ask a lot of them. Be open. Don't have assumptions going in, or let go of your assumptions. We always do, but let them go. When you go into your group and you open up your table to your group, and be open to their responses without assuming what their reaction's going to be. We typically are wrong about those assumptions anyway. Be open, no assumptions. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable is another very important point. We're always, as leaders in our own worlds, we are always being asked to be inept in new worlds because we haven't done them yet. So be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Be comfortable with kind of having a spotlight on you, and allow it to burn away so that what's true about you, the authentic self, can come through, that isn't bothered by any of this, that is simply on fire with a message, on fire with something to share. Another one is, when you're with your groups, when you're with others, brainstorm possibilities. That's a great thing about World Cafe. Everyone will have a voice in this. And we can all together, collectively, brainstorm possibilities for ourselves and for all of the rest of us. We get to both receive and transmit and support. Then another point they made was to be an observer, to watch the world. That's a really important one. A lot of times, especially in this fire world, we tend to project. You're on stage, project. But you also have to receive from your fellow cast and from the audience, right? So observe, watch the world. Listen to what the world needs and wants of you. Listen to what the world has to support you with, to offer you. And another movement of that is networking, something that I'm learning more and more about. As a solo practitioner and as a solo journeyer, I'm learning how powerful it is and important it is to network. When we are siloed in ourselves, we are relying on personal power alone. Personal power is amazing. But when we open up into a field of support around us, now we're networked. It reminds me of, I remember in school there was SETI, S-E-T-I, and they're watching and listening, observing the stars for possible alien contact or alien alien communications. And they realized their computers were not strong enough. So they started to have this collaborative intelligence where distributive networks were created, where now your little personal computer could be tied into the mainframe computer, and we all become satellite connectors of the web of life. And together we're so much greater. So a big part of this is really tapping into that network, right? And being willing to be supported by your network and to grow that network. SolLab is only an operating system, a holding place for us to come together. It's not a particular way. It's just the alchemy of transformation. It's the alchemy of psychospiritual development, of a personal development, a professional development. What you do within that is your gift back to the world, right? Be an experimenter, SolLab, laboratory experimentation. In that we're also researching, right? We're researching what it means to be good in the world, what it means to be powerful in the world, and that sort of thing. They say new ideas come from meeting with different folks. I love that. There's a great quote that says, to travel is to realize you've been wrong about other people, right? So in this group, be open to what you don't know and be open to new expressions and listen to different folks, really cueing in for insights that are novel, that surprise you. I love doing the inner journey work for that reason, because as normal as it feels when I'm in there, I'm always going, oh, yeah, oh, wow, that archetype says do this. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. Listen for those aha moments when you're in communication with each other. Another point is, where do you find your best ideas? Associations for best ideas, for connecting ideas. Where do you get yours, right? For me, it always comes when I leave my little world here in my office, that is right now a studio, and I get out of the house and I clip Bootsy up, my dog, and we take a nice long walk through the woods and through the trails. I always get new ideas. It's like in here I'm just chewing up food, right? But when I take a walk, it's like I swallow and let a deeper level process occur. And from that, these synthesis of new insights come through. So I love that. Where do you get yours? Make note of that, and maybe in those places be ready with a pad of paper or your phone to take little voice memos, right? Sometimes it's, and for me often, it's in a conversation with somebody that I really care about, somebody I'm working with. It could be a client. I learned so much from my clients, and I'm sure you do as well. The whole point of this whole venture is to make a difference. Make a difference in yourself, make a difference in the world. Fire 2 asks us to share and to express from that creative fire, and trust that in the process, all that needs to be burned away will be burned away. But we always have our focus in the center of the spiral, the fifth element, the ether element, our true soul. And we'll never be worried about spiraling out into creative ventures or into egotistical concepts of self, or even into rituals. Holding that space in the middle is that still point where we can allow ourselves, it's that sweet water that allows us to deviate from the center and go out into the world without fearing spiraling out. We keep our orbit around who we are. We can expand it, but we still have that centripetal spiraling in that eventually will tighten up, spiral in to the center, so that in this moment, all the elements are connected and supporting us. But right now, we're going way out there and playing in the world. Eventually, we'll spiral back in and see all the elements are all there in every breath. Thank you guys so much. You make such a huge difference. So far, I've been extraordinarily excited about what you've been sharing with each other. And I expect that this is going to continue, and we're going to keep moving forward. And this vision of what SolLab can become which is really a holding place for who you are and what you can bring out into the world, an open source way to communicate your truth. And all these myriad, all these fractaling forms, this is what we're holding space for. And each of you are creating a unique model for that. Each of you are creating something that hasn't been done before. And that's what I find so powerful about this. This is really about you and about your way and what you want to bring into the world. And this whole process is simply here to help you bring out all the elements of it and to synapse, like cells connecting with all the other cells of the body, of the form, of the one, right? So welcome to Fire 2 and enjoy the process and keep in touch, and I'll see you on the discussion boards. Bye.